Greater Than 0% is a 501c3 nonprofit that's on a mission to share stories of organizations from around the world that are changing lives. We have weekly episodes featuring amazing nonprofits and monthly episodes interviewing top business executives. You can find us at gtzp.org on your preferred streaming or social media platforms.
Alrighty, thanks everybody for tuning into this episode. Today we have Ryan and Emily Rao, the co-founders of Luena Foundation. Ryan and Emily, thank you both so much for your time today. I know it's a little late your time, but I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us, Joseph. We're happy to be here.
Yes. So we always start our episodes by starting with the mission of the organizations that we're interviewing. So what is the mission of Luena Foundation?
Well, our aim is to improve the lives of children, vulnerable children across the world, one child at a time.
Yeah. Boom.
And by helping vulnerable children, we find local leaders in which we empower those local leaders. So it's a joint strategy where we help children through empowering local leaders.
Yeah.
And by empowering local leaders, all of the ideas have to come from the actual community and not ourselves.
Yep. I have some questions on that. Before I get off course, let's start with the why. So why you both? Why is this something that is your passion and you're investing time now in your lives into now?
Well, I think we've spent a lot of time traveling, a lot of time in different countries. We've been in different situations and been kind of living with different communities for the last 15 years. Yeah. And one thing we realize is that the seat of power in a community when you're talking about transformational change in a community, you've got to get really down to a grassroots level. It has to be very granular, and it has to be something where the ownership of such change has to stay in that community. We've gotten through a process of coming to this point. So when we talk about like humanitarianism, our focus on doing this was when we decided we wanted to start an NGO, we knew that we wanted to work directly with local organizations in the countries where the change would be affected. And that so far it's something that is generally not done in the large INGOs, but something that in a small, nimble organization like ours, it's something that we're able to see tremendous results in communities across places where we've worked in Africa, South America, Asia.
But I think the question specifically was, how did we get here and why did we get here? And I think we both grew up in the United States. We both followed the American dream. We both went to very good colleges. We both worked on Wall Street. Yeah. We had the jobs that everybody tells you want when you're little because, you get paid well and you have an endless expense account and you could travel all over the country. And for me personally, after 13 years of working on Wall Street, I was mentally, spiritually, and emotionally bankrupt. So all of the things that we were told, I discovered for myself, for lack of a better word, were a lie for me. It wasn't a formula for happiness. So we set out 15 years ago. We quit our jobs, much to the chagrin of all of our friends and family. Yeah. We took our 1-year-old son at the time and started traveling all over the world and haven't stopped for the last 14 years. Along the way, we've had 2 more children. And we've been fortunate to meet friends and family and have different experiences. And this travel has allowed us to open our minds and show us just how fortunate we are and just how privileged we are, just by the mere fact that we were born in California and New York City. And from that privilege, we believe it's our right and our duty and our obligation to return what we've so freely been given to those that have less. And through our travels, we've been able to see and experience and really befriend and become families with people with absolutely nothing, no access to water, healthcare, or anything. And across the globe, the most generous and the happiest people we've ever met are those with the least amount of financial things. And that's helped shape us as we've moved forward. But 5 years ago, the reason why Luena Foundation started officially I'll let you say.
No, well, the catalyst behind the actual formation of this was we were in our home in southern Spain at the time, and our kids. We have a family friend who had two children, and the daughter, who was 11, Luena, back in 2018, spent the night with us. It was like a sleepover party with our kids. And then around 1 o'clock in the morning, started complaining of a very bad headache. And when we rushed to her, she was actually having convulsions on the floor. And we quickly activated medical services, but it was complicated because it's southern Spain. We're so remote. We got her, she was able to get to the hospital. But the doctors informed us that, and her parents, that she'd had this catastrophic cerebral hemorrhage, an aneurysm, a cerebral aneurysm, and really something that within minutes had pretty much ended her life. And
when we got to the hospital, we were told by the doctors that she was dead on our floor. They couldn't operate. They couldn't do any medical intervention. So during the 8 days at the Malaga Children's Hospital, we went every day. We spent day and night there. We decided to form a foundation in this 11-year-old's named Luena's honor to continue her legacy of love, to touch as many vulnerable children around the world. And at the end, when she finally died 8 days later, her parents decided to donate 5 of her organs. And those selfless acts saved 5 children around Spain. We've been fortunate to meet 2 of the 5 children that are carrying her lungs and her kidney.
But it was sort of the first act of generosity of Luena. Embodied by the girl, by our friend's daughter. And we took it upon ourselves at first, really for her parents, as something just we wanted to do for her parents. But then really it sort of evolved. And now that we're, more than 100 projects in, it's something that we think is so tremendously vital. It's so important that this is for all of us. We're doing this for all of us.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's a very powerful story, and I know we talked about this too in our intro calls, but hearing it again is just it sounds like you've taken something that is such a catastrophic event and turned it into something very beautiful. And I want to get into those 100 projects that you mentioned, but first, you mentioned in the introduction of the mission statement that everything you do is community led and makes sure to include the community leaders, people in general, as much as possible. I want to double click into that specific topic. When did you all decide that was such a crucial part of how you operate? And why is it a challenge for larger NGOs and larger organizations in general to really have that be core to their programming and their business model, their nonprofit business model in this case? Yeah.
Well, I think because we're Wall Street research analysts, we're trying to leverage our past expertise as far as analyzing small companies for investments. We now consider, as a nonprofit, we have a portfolio of small investments that we help to nurture and to grow and to guide. And we realized that we're very different than the larger nonprofits because we, through all of our travels, we're the ones that go out and investigate. We're the ones that meet the community leaders. We're the ones that make sure that the new well is working. We're the ones that go out there. We work 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day for the foundation for free. So there's no overhead. 100% of the donations that come into Luena Foundation go out. So Emily and I cover all the expenses, all the legal expenses, everything that's associated. So what we've seen in our travels, one reason why we're different is because this isn't a business to us. It's a vocation. It's a labor of love. And we realized we were in South America, and for 6 months, we were just going out and doing projects and giving money and doing all these things. And every single night we'd go home with tears in our eyes, realizing we were not making any meaningful difference. And the reason was because we brought our Western ideals and our thoughts into a community where we had no idea what the community needed or wanted. So we decided at that point, 4.5 years ago, we'd stop giving as much immediately and start listening. And when we started listening and opening our hearts and our minds, we realized that the people who best know, the best catalysts of change in their community are the people themselves, not us, because we have no idea. And I think that's where we're different than big aid. No one sits behind a computer sending like ideas to these organizations. If an idea does not come from the community to us first, we immediately say no, because they're the ones. And ultimately, when Luena Foundation, we're here not to enable people, we're here to empower people. And by empowering people, we have to make them the catalyst for change, not us. And when we're no longer around, we want to make sure that they're doing what they need to do to be the leaders in their community, to make the next generations to have an opportunity maybe they didn't have. So we've, through mistakes, and a lot of mistakes the first 6 months, is how we came to this realization that we need to get out of the way more and allow listen more. And then we find leaders in the community. And from those leaders, we help and become partners with these leaders. And they're the ones that are accountable to us, accountable to our donors, and then ultimately they're accountable to the community. And it becomes and also we require a 25% investment from any partner, so that when we would first start projects, we would just give the money and do it. And none of them worked very well. And we realized because
the community wasn't invested.
They weren't invested. You have to be invested, not only the community. So every project, people have to generate, they have to find rocks or do non-skilled labor or provide lunches for the skilled. They have to be.
It can be an in-kind. It's an in-kind.
It's usually in-kind,
but just skin in the game, like that. It's
It's
it adds to that concept of ownership. I mean, there is already an intrinsic concept of ownership because this is coming out of the community, and I think it's important to highlight that we do prioritize the voices of women and children. Like that is what is really important to us, and we do in our application. We always ask, how many women are in your organization? Is this community project? How will it affect women in your community? Were women in your community part of the committee that proposed this project? So there's a lot of that that's taken into consideration. And I think also our specialty, what we really strive to do is find these leaders who have this deep connection to their communities. They're not just somebody coming from outside, layering on this feeling that this community needs such and such. It is somebody who has risen up from that community, has the voice and the ear of the people and we're representing the people that they want to work with.
Well, and most of the time, the projects that are brought to us, for lack of a better word, are not sexy projects, aren't projects we can then take and get people to. We as Luena Foundation do a terrible job, receiving donations, because we spend 99% of our time making sure that if my father or a friend gives us $10, that $10 was spent the way it was supposed to be spent in the field. But many times the projects from larger aid, they have to then leverage these projects to then go raise 20 million, 50 million. We're probably one of the only NGOs that facilitates birth certificates around the world, because nobody can raise money by marketing that they facilitate the application of birth certificates. But in Southwest Cameroon, there's 2 million displaced people, and 98% don't have birth certificates. So if you're a 7-year-old Southwest Cameroon,
you're an undocumented person,
and you want to go to school, when you hit 3rd or 4th grade and you've got to sit for the exams to move on, a whole generation can't sit because they don't have a birth certificate, which costs the equivalent of not even a nice meal out, maybe $17. But to get that and get donors interested in those kind of projects is impossible. But we don't care, because our goal isn't to interest other donors. Our goal is to empower and improve the community. And with projects like birth certificates, it's one of the best ways to empower these young children, because without them, they can't even go to school. So we don't look at any of this as we would have looked at it as a Wall Street analyst. We don't look on.
There's no ulterior motive.
There's no ulterior motive. Every project comes from the community. And if the project makes sense, then we'll fund it, no matter whether it can sell or not sell, whether people like it or not, we will do the projects no one else will do, because they're the ones that usually are the most important. Are usually the most important.
Yeah. Two questions. The first is, you mentioned that you have a hyper focus on women and children. Is that because in your experience, they are typically more closer to the communities, or more like capable leaders in the community? Or I'm curious as to why that was a decision.
Well, our mission statement really stands behind children, right?
Yep.
Vulnerable children. And women, mothers, grandmothers are generally the gatekeepers to the well-being of children in communities.
Yeah.
And really, if for a project to work, those people are usually the ones who understand what the need is best.
Yep.
And a lot of times they're underrepresented in their community because you have a more male dominated society, and it's something, we work with all people. Okay. We don't not have any kind of we have no,
we're not a political,
or religious.
No. I always say, if a child is blue, white, purple, pink, black, yellow, it doesn't matter to us. Doesn't matter if they're Muslim, Buddhist, Christian. We're here to try to make the world a better place, one child at a time.
Yeah.
And while we focus on children, usually in the poorer countries in the world, the men are not there, unfortunately. At least, I mean, they're just, 80% of the people we met in Africa when we were there for the last, 6 months ago, we were there for 4 months. 80% of the women were single mothers, raising 6 to 8 children themselves. So we have to be sensitive too, that in every project we do, while we focus on children and women, we also have to teach the younger generation of men, of boys, that they can't repeat the same mistakes that they've seen from their fathers and grandfathers, whether it be abusing someone, whether it be, sexual violence, whether it be whatever.
Yeah.
So we have to we always try to incorporate the young men as well, because if you lose the young men in a community, no matter how you empower the women, if their habits don't change, real change will not take place.
You hit a ceiling.
So we focus mainly on children, but with that, we do a lot with young men.
Yeah.
And women as well, because we realized in all of our travels and all of the investigation and all the projects that if you do not work with the young men in the community as well, that community can't change. The women are the gatekeepers to the children. They're very important. They're the ones, if you want to get to the children, you have to empower the women. But at the same time, you can't forget mainly the younger men, the 13 to 17-year-olds, because if you do, they'll repeat the mistakes that they've seen their whole lives. And we're trying to change that cycle of, I say poverty, but poverty has nothing to do with food or drink or water. Poverty lives here and in your heart. And most of the time it's to no fault of these young men or women. They don't know any different. They've never seen any different. They've never, if your great grandfather abuses your grandmother and then your father does the same thing, most likely a 13-year-old boy is going to do that because that's what he views as the norm. And we have to change those things so that the next generation of women and children don't have to live with those type of things.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the projects over the past 5 or so years. What were some of the initial projects that you started with, and what are some more recent ones that you've participated in?
So our first real push was into South America before the pandemic. And we worked a lot in Argentina at the time, which, if you know anything about Argentina, they are constantly having a crisis of inflation, which really impacts a lot of the areas outside of the major city centers. But Buenos Aires is where we were working, but mainly in the province. And what happens in those areas is the communities come together in the absence of any kind of support from the state or anything like that. And they formed these communal merenderos where kids can go and get food. Okay. Because it's, I mean, you think Buenos Aires, you think it's a wealthy city. It is, but there is abject poverty surrounding almost every single South American metropolis, slums, so on and so forth. And we worked closely in several of those communities with the merenderos, helping them, helping them fund educational programs, back to like homework support services, even working in small neighborhoods that were bringing in arts and culture to kids who just weren't exposed to any of this, mainly just to keep them away from drugs, away from drinking, and just engaged and working and participating in the community.
Yeah.
We also did projects for the first 2 years of life, because many times in the poorer countries, the people don't have access to
maternal and infant health care.
Yeah. So we did a lot of projects there. We also think it's important. We've provided sort of artistic arts and things like that to street kids. So it would give them the opportunity for at least one afternoon a week to enjoy the things that our children so freely can enjoy anytime, whether it be learning to play an instrument or theater or art. We did a lot of emergency response work, which we try to stay away from, but when you're front lines like us, you have to do a little bit of that. So there's a lot of flooding in that happened in Buenos Aires. So we went out 3 times a week, and we would, whether it be food or mattresses or things like that, we did a lot of that. We also, one of our stables is we provide we have an emergency health fund that's actually in the name of our son, because our son was just diagnosed with cancer. So again, something that's really touched our family, like Luena, in at the beginning, a very negative way, a really difficult 7 months for us. We've turned it into a positive. So probably now at least 30 to 40 kids have not just in South America, but we're very heavily concentrated in Africa, have gotten access to emergency healthcare procedures through the fund in our son's name. Education is a pillar of what we do. So we did a lot of educational programs in South America and in Peru and Bolivia and Chile, and now we're doing the same in Africa. And as we, the last 2 years, have focused a lot on Africa, a lot of it are WASH programs, which are just simple access to clean water. Many times we've put in probably 25 to 30 latrines around different African.
Another unsexy project.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
toilet.
Yeah.
Because at school, if you don't have toilets, then the women who go through menstruation, they don't go to school when they hit a certain age of 14, 15, or what have you, because of the stigma and the culture of many of these countries. Many of these girls or boys, if there's no latrine, go out and have to defecate. Many have gotten
cholera.
Many have gotten raped and abused because they go off school grounds, which is an unsafe place in general.
Yeah.
We do a lot. We've built a lot of latrines because while it's not a sexy project, it keeps the kids at school and at least gives them access. So along with latrines, we've put in a lot of, we've facilitated access to clean water, because many things we take for granted, like clean water, almost every school that we visited in Africa doesn't have that. Yeah. We also have put probably 600 to 700 kids back in school. So we have a scholarship fund for kids who don't have access or were in school, but the parents can't pay for school fees. But a lot of times when we do that, we go to the moms in the community and we try to empower the moms. So we recently bought 2 cassava machines in Southwest Cameroon so that these 30 mothers can do different things with cassava, and they can distribute it and they can leverage the harvest, so that after the first year of Luena paying for school fees, in year 2 to 6, they can pay for it themselves. So we look for long-term sustainable projects where we go in and fill the gap the first year. But after the first year, we try to teach and empower our partners and the community like we would our own children, that there's accountability and there's a beginning and an end. And when Luena ends, hopefully you have the skills to be sustainable. And that's our goal, is so we can provide sustainable projects to these communities.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I feel like this is you all are involved in such different types of activities, and that's just a testament to how you are taking so much input from the community, because different communities have very different needs in different cities in different countries, right? How do you get pulled into like completely different continents or different countries? Like what is the initial connection that takes you beyond where you're currently living?
Well, I mean, it starts with somebody submitting a grant. And, we obviously spend a lot of time doing our due diligence, because that's our background. That's what we did in our Wall Street jobs. You get pretty savvy at reading projects after a while.
But in the beginning, we had to reach out to potential partners.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're totally unknown.
Yeah.
Luena, nobody knew. Not that we're known by a lot of people, but over the evolution of the last 5 years, I haven't sent a proactive email to a prospective partner, because every day we receive on average 5 to 10 new prospective partners.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So once you're in a community, like we just entered Kenya, the country, and we were fortunate that we have 3 wonderful partners, but now not a day goes by that somewhere within a 200-mile radius or kilometer radius of Nairobi that we don't receive incoming projects. And we have to be very careful, because we have to do a lot of research. So like Emily said, we used to follow small cap medical device companies for investment banking firms. We do the same thing, but no profits involved. Yeah. So we now have a network of contacts in all the countries we work, that literally when somebody comes into us as a prospective partner, we do all of our diligence, but we always, if we can't travel to Africa because our son right now is getting chemotherapy, so for the next 9 months, we can't go, someone will visit that partner with no money. They aren't paid. Our partners who have very little funds themselves, we don't pay them to go do this. We become a partnership, and they go out and investigate these other new prospective partners. So we have sort of, I wouldn't say an army, but we have many field agents, because our partners become almost like family. And then because they're like family, at any time we can say, go visit this. And yes, we'll pay for them a bus ride. I mean, we'll help that, but they'll go do this research. And because of that, in the last 2 years, I haven't sent out a new prospective outgoing email, because we have so many that we can't keep up with all that we have coming in.
Joseph, you would be surprised. Like, there are so many amazing, small, off the radar organizations that will never see the light of day, just because they're in, Kibera or in a slum, or, it's just, there's so many of them. Yeah. And these are, we're just catalyzing the very best of them, finding the very best and giving them that catalytic infusion so that they can actually do something amazing.
But then we also, and what creates a lot of work for us is we become partners in every sense of the word. So in a small Ugandan community-based organization that we've done a project with, we'll then do joint fundraisers. We'll put them in touch with our contacts in the United States, because they need to increase exposure, because ultimately we don't do this for money or for ego. We do this because we understand that the ones that are going to make real change in that community are not Luena Foundation, is the small community-based organization. So we have to help them grow and get more donations and be able to touch more lives in the community, because they're the ones that are there every single day. And I think that's where we're different than most, at least large aid organizations. Besides, there's no waste, there's no overhead,
no salary,
there's no ego. So if somebody wants to donate to Luena Foundation, many times we say, no, go donate
fund this project.
Fund this project and donate straight to our community-based organization, because if somebody donates to them, just the energy that gives the community-based organization is worth more than the money that was sent. most of our partners have less than $30,000 to $40,000 of annual donations. That's pretty big of the people we work with.
Yeah.
So from a large aid standpoint, it's just, there's no scale. There's no scale in that, so that there's no money in that. But for us, we can do projects for $5,000 that we've had people come to us that actually, work at Red Cross and say that would have cost us $95,000. You guys just did a fresh water point for 700 people for $5,000. That's impossible. And that's what, it's amazing with a little money, empathy, compassion,
and the community buy-in,
and the community.
Yep.
The leverage you get from that, and that's what we try to do.
Yep. I think so. Having interviewed tons of organizations, one of the things that I've seen of why people might be hesitant to donate to a nonprofit is because they don't know where the money's going. And so I feel like you all have made that more than transparent and removed that barrier from people's concerns of getting involved in a nonprofit. So somehow we're at 30 minutes. So engagement. So people that are listening, what type of engagement do you look for? You've touched on it a little bit, but what type of engagement do you look for from listeners who are interested and want to get involved? And then how can they get engaged and where could they go?
Well, I mean, I think one thing that's very important to us, and we talk every dinner with our three children, is that we want to find, it's not us that are going to make the world a better place. It's the next generation and the next generation. So really anybody who has a heart for change, a heart for wanting to make things better, there's a place for them at Luena Foundation. It can be, we have 2 young women who do all of our social marketing because we just have no time, and I'm not good at that. They do all the TikTok, all the stuff that I don't know how it works. They sent to me a message today saying we got 26,000 hits on some project, and they see the difference they're making because then they're linked to DonorSee, another online
100%.
platform, and they see exactly that when that TikTok went out, there was $600 that was donated to a project that got funded, and now 3 kids in Uganda are now in school. So we anybody that wants to visit a partner, wants to go to one of the countries we're working in, wants to help with a website, anyone that wants to do anything, we can find and provide.
We do all of it. Between Ryan and I, there's no staff here. There's no interns. I mean, volunteers, our social media people. So this is you're looking at the organization, and we always need people to get behind our cause, share what they can about us. We do work with a wonderful online platform called DonorSee, which is designed to showcase small projects that anywhere from $100 to $700 that has a specific need that you can see in a video. Like you actually you get a chance to let the community speak directly to the donor, and we put projects there so that people can fund directly to what they want to support that Luena is doing. We always tell people to go look at our DonorSee. It's sort of like it's almost like an Instagram roll to see what exactly. I mean, we're doing more than what's there, but that's a very good insight into how and what we're doing.
Yeah. And at the same time, we have funded 3 or 4, any project that a young person brings to us.
Yeah.
It's called the Change Makers Plan. It can be between any age. It can be your children. It can be any project whatsoever. They have to fill out an application. That project comes to us and we fund that project. Because to me, it doesn't matter what the project's for. It's that there's children and younger people actually thinking of someone other than themselves. So for us, that we want to grow that, because I think it's very important for our son's 15, for the 15-year-olds to get involved, and instead of being on their phone 18 hours a day, to actually spend time thinking about other people who are lesser fortunate and actually doing something. There's something to be said about thinking about it, but actually getting to action.
Right.
And writing a grant and conceiving a project, how you can benefit a community. And we have young change makers, part of this fund, who've benefited from this fund in the United States and Africa and South America. We have this program is worldwide.
Yep. Okay. Wow. Where could they find you?
Well,
website, social media. Yep.
Social media, like our girls are doing a great job running our social media. Our handle is Luena Foundation. We have a website that I'm maintaining. It's not terribly up to date, but Instagram for sure is. Our Facebook is very current. Our DonorSee is up to the minute. Those are all.
But yeah, if anybody out there is a web designer that wants to help us, I mean, I'll just throw it out there. But yeah,
yeah.
It's in 16 countries, probably about 150 projects. And because of just sheer lack of time, 80% of them aren't on our website because we focus on making sure that the projects have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that the community is involved and that they're done well and in the right way. So that's one area that we've never spent or invested much in our foundation. We have a website, but it's nowhere near up to date with all the things that have happened in the last 6 months.
No, it needs, that's a great way. That would be a great, if any web designers are out there who want to just pitch in a few hours, give me a call.
Or finally, if you ever want to go visit one of the countries we're involved with, we're now in 16 countries. We have a young 23-year-old coming to visit us in Barcelona who's then going to Kenya, and she's going to go to Kenya, Uganda, and Cameroon and visit different projects, some of ours, some that she wants to visit. And that's something, too, that you can become. There aren't many foundations or small NGOs that our What's Up is on the website. You have direct contact, direct access, can ask any questions about where your donation goes, or you can also, go visit our partners as a part of the foundation and become a collaborator in that way. Because the more eyes, we do not have the market cornered on good ideas by any stretch. And it's going to take an army to make the world a better place. And we would love anybody that has a heart for travel and wants to go to Uganda and visit 4 or 5 partners. An email, we could definitely, facilitate that with people that we've met, that we know, and that are our friends and family.
Yeah. Well, is there anything that we missed or anything that you want to leave us with before you wrap up and before people that are listening get engaged and reach out to you with how they could help?
I think we covered, I just, what Ryan said, if you want the world to be better, take up arms, like become part of this, do something.
But you don't have to do it.
It doesn't have to be
for Luena Foundation.
No.
All we ever tell
people. It doesn't have to be in Africa or South America. If something is in you, like Joseph, this, if you're called to do something, do it. Make it happen. And it's just, I think it's easy to complain and say, and talk about all society's ills right now and how everything is going to hell in a handbag. Fine. Okay. But at the end of the day, on your deathbed, do you want to be the person that pointed out all the problems, or do you want to be somebody who actually was part of the solution? Yeah. That's all. Yeah. It's simple.
Oh.
No. And I think when we've spoken to a few schools about what we do, we've lived 2 different lives, and both lives have are cornerstones of who we are, and there's good and bad from those. And I think each individual has to make their own choice about there's a big difference between happiness and fulfillment. And to be truly fulfilled, there's no other way to be fulfilled other than being of service to others. And that can be at the Boys and Girls Club down the street. That can be teaching English to a vulnerable immigrant. That it can just be smiling to someone that when you walk in the door or at the grocery store, all the things that maybe were around 50 years ago that people don't do anymore. We just want people to get into action, but that doesn't mean for Luena per se. That can be whatever their heart's telling them to do.
Just do it.
Because in order to make the world a better place, we all have to do it together.
Yeah. And a lifetime is like that. Ask Luena. Lifetime goes by like that.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you all for going overtime. I really appreciate it. People that are listening, get engaged. We'll make sure to share all the links so they're easily accessible. But Ryan and Emily, really appreciate your time in this conversation, and the work that you're doing is amazing, and we're honored to share it. So thank you both so much.
No, thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Greater Than 0%. To find more episodes or to have your organization featured on the podcast, you can find us at gtzp.org on your preferred streaming or social media platforms. Find your cause with Greater Than 0%.